All right, back for part two. So we left off where we have our little plane where we can shoot these little darts that we set up and we can move it around the screen. So we are going to go on to the next tutorial up here, or step 7, and we're going to start creating the enemy planes at this point. So again, as we remember, we look up at the instructions up here and we can click it to see exactly what blocks it wants us to be using here if we ever can't quite make sense of what it wants us to do. So the next step is saying add another event code to run game update every half second. So remember, color-coded hints, right? If this is purple, well, we're probably going to have to look at the purple tab over here under game. So it tells us we want to grab this on game update block here. And if we click back in here, it says, all right, we want to update every half a second, which is 500 milliseconds. That's just a metric version of that. So that just means our game is going to basically run like an update check every half a second. And it's telling us that every half a second, we're going to be setting a new, a bogey is like a word for like bad guy or enemy, like fighter plane, basically. So every half a second, we're going to be spawning a new enemy plane. So we're going to, it says create a sprite. So it says set sprite. And again, it tells us we want to name it bogey. That's what it tells us to call it. And we want to create a new sprite, and we're going to label it as an enemy sprite instead of a player sprite. Because the other one we created before, that is set to the player, meaning that's what we, the player, control. But this new sprite, we want to make, and you can click it, for example, I'm going to, instead of being a player sprite, we can see we have some options. There's player, projectile, food, enemy, or a new kind that we could create. But for now, we're not going to worry about the extra stuff. We're going to make an enemy sprite. We're going to click over here on my sprite, and we're going to rename it. And it told us we wanted to rename it to be bogey. And just like we did for the dart and the other space plane, we're going to draw an enemy plane. So actually, let me check something here. I don't know if it matters, but I don't know if it's going to be coming in from the right side of the screen. If we want to make it like looking left, I don't know. We'll see. So again, I'll go ahead and just draw some kind of enemy plane here. Again, I don't really care what you draw, just some kind of shape. I'll maybe make it have some wings coming down here that are black or something. Maybe we'll have like a red window or something on the top. Again, just kind of, you can draw whatever you want. I'll just keep it at this for right now, just as a quick example. So I'll hit done. And now we have a new plane that will be spawning every half a second. So we're going to go to the next step. On the bogey sprite, I'll click it to open it. On the bogey sprite, set the velocity and have it fly from right to left. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to grab the velocity option. So in sprites, we're going to pick the second one, set the velocity. Basically, that means set the speed of how it's moving. And remember, we're setting for Vx and Vy, that means the velocity or speed of the x-axis and the y-axis. So we're setting the bogey sprite, and again, we'll check. It tells us we want it to be negative x 100, or negative 100 for the Vx and 0 for y, meaning it's going to go like negative 100 on x, meaning it's going to like go at a certain speed along the x-axis, and y is going to be 0, because we don't want the plane to be going up and down on the y-axis. We just want it to go straight across the screen. Okay, we're going to go ahead and just do the next step. On to step 9. It's now saying add a code to, and you can see over here as like the game is like starting, you see the planes are spawning, but they're not starting in the right part of the screen. They're starting in like the middle of the screen. So this is the next part up here that's going to set where they're going to start on the screen. So if we look, it's telling us to add a code to set the position of the bogey sprite. And it's telling us to do X 180 and Y a random number. So let's get this started. So we're going to go to our sprites, and we are going to pick this set position block. So we're going to grab the set position, and it tells us, again, we're just following what it tells us up here. So it's telling us to set the X to 180. So we'll type that in. Now here's an interesting part, right? Normally I could just type in a number for the Y, but it's telling us that it wants us to grab this purple pick a random number block. So again, purple, we're going to go look at, I think it's under the math technically, it's purple down here. So we're going to grab this pick a random number block, and we're going to see how this is kind of like a circular block. That means it can fit in like a circular hole, right? So if I drop that in, basically this is saying for the Y value, like where my ship starts on the screen up and down, it wants to pick a random like position. And it tells me up here, we're gonna do 0 to 120. So I don't know exactly the range here, but basically that means, and you can see it starting, my enemy ship is picking a random height along the screen from 0 to 120 up top. So you can see they're all kind of starting at random positions as they fly across the screen now. All right, let's do the next step. Use another event for when the player sprite overlaps with an enemy. Basically, we're deciding what's going to happen when my ship hits anything else, like the bad guy ship. So on sprite, we're going to do this bottom one. On sprite of any kind overlaps another sprite. Okay, so it tells us up here, we need to make sure it's on, basically this says on any sprite that's a player, meaning our ship that we've created, whenever any player sprite overlaps any other sprite that's an enemy. So notice we have to change this second box to enemy. So I'm going to switch that. That's kind of a little thing that can maybe easily be forgotten when you're grabbing this box. So anytime a sprite of a player type hits any sort of enemy sprite, something's going to happen. So let's do the next step. It says add a code to destroy the other sprite, which in this case would be the enemy sprite. Okay, so we're going to go into the sprite tab. And we're going to pick the one that says destroy. And I guess we'll switch that there. So again, we're going to set, I guess it doesn't really matter. I think we can just call it bogey. And it should still work, maybe. Let's just see what happens. Well, I guess we'll just follow exactly what it wants. So it tells us right here, destroy other sprite. So we'll just go in here. Actually, I guess we do just leave it. So I guess we're going to leave it as the enemy sprite, which in this case is the bogey. So I think we can just keep that as it is. So when we touch the enemy sprite, it should destroy it. So again, hopefully this will work. So we'll go to the next step. In the event that this happens, it tells us we want to remove a life from our little hearts up here. So whenever we get hit, we're going to remove a life. So we're going to go to the pink info tab. We're going to pick change life by -1. I know I'm going a little fast, but again, if you need to rewind or pause at any point, that's fine. So at this point, you can see, and you might be able to hear it on yours, it gets kind of loud, actually. It's kind of surprisingly loud. But whenever you get hit now and you lose lives, a game over screen is going to start happening. So whenever you hit like 0 lives, I think it will kind of give you a game over, and with a loud noise, right? So every time I get hit, I lose a life, basically. Next step. We're on step 13 now. Almost done. Last, or that's not last, but the next thing says put in an event code to run, and I'm going to go ahead and stop my game over on the left so it doesn't keep on going. Put in an event code that when the projectile sprite, remember that dart that we made earlier? Whenever our projectile overlaps an enemy, something's going to happen. So we're going to go ahead and grab another one of those these overlap type codes. So back in sprites, this bottom one, and we're going to make the box. Again, I can look at the example. We just have to set the type of the sprites that we're working with here. So we're saying on any type of projectile sprite, meaning, remember we set that earlier, we made that projectile dart option. Whenever a projectile sprite overlaps, and we're changing this box to enemy, whenever a projectile hits an enemy, something's going to happen. So let's go to the next step, see what it's going to want us to do. You can probably guess, it wants us to add code to destroy the enemy sprite. So again, back in sprites, we're going to pick a destroy, and it's already set. Mine's already set anyway. I don't know if you need to change yours, but I'm setting it to the bogey, or like the bad guy sprite. Okay. Moving on, step 15. This part's kind of fun. It says insert code that when my sprite is destroyed with the projectile, we want to make like a fire explosion effect. So the way that you do that is you'll see a little plus sign next to this destroy code. So you can open that and you can set the type of effect that you want to happen when you shoot the plane and it hits a bad guy, basically. So it tells us up here to set it to fire and 100 milliseconds. So that's just how quick it happens and how long it's on the screen. If you want to play with different ones in here, that's fine. But I'll do what it tells me. You can pick something else if you want. But it tells me to do fire, and it tells me to switch this to 100 milliseconds. So let's just play the game real quick, and you can see as I shoot them, see how when I'm hitting them, it's blowing up. See how they're like getting destroyed with that little fire effect over there on the left. So yeah, that's kind of fun. Okay, so let's do the next effect or the next tutorial. And then we're pretty much done at this point, but it says, all right, whenever we hit the bad guy with a projectile, it's going to change our score. So I'm going to do change score by 1. So we add a point whenever we're there. And at this point, I don't know why my game's getting a game over like when I hit one or when I get hit once, but I guess maybe there's some code there that you could probably tweak. But that's about it for this tutorial. So at this point now, if I start the game and try to play it, you'll notice that when I hit the enemies, I'm gaining score up in the top right as well. So this tutorial shows you how to create movement. It shows you how to create like sprites for players and enemies and for projectiles. It shows you how to shoot the projectiles and then how to make things happen when you either get hit or hit other things. All right. So keep in mind some of the stuff that we worked on in here because when we create your own game, you might use one of these tutorials as kind of like a basis for what you want to create, and you can adapt and kind of add or maybe design other things later on. So hopefully this made sense to you, and now you have a working space shooter game. So you can go ahead and hit the finish button, and for right now, what I want you to do once you're done with this is, I think if you do publish project, you hit the little orange publish, it gives you a link. And it's kind of fun, actually. If you have like a phone or a tablet with a QR code reader, you can scan that little QR code right here, and you should be able to play the game on your phone. So that's kind of a cool little thing that you can try with this. So feel free to do that if you want. But what I want you to do is I want you to copy this link. Oops, it went away. If it goes away, you can always go back to this top share button up here and publish again. But I want you to copy this link and put that in your journal for the day. When you write your sentences and stuff, put that in your journal. And also, I do want you to take a screenshot of your code as well to put in your daily journal. But other than that, hopefully you learned something and you can try to play your game. Good luck, and I'll meet you on the next tutorial.